Our next question's from Bill. I don't believe Babel was an historic event. Human languages show a definite lineage, and it doesn't match the Babel story. Does that matter? Doesn't the interpretation still work since the first century Jews believed it to be historical? In a general sense, how much historicity is required of Genesis 1 through 11 for the divine counsel interpretation to work?
Well, I would say in very loose general terms, if you're looking at divine counsel stuff as a theological statement, both in terms of a supernatural realm and in terms of how people not only believed that the divine world intersected with the human world, but also that it did in some way, then you don't need precise historicity. But I'm actually going to object to the premise of the question because I think evangelicals tend to overclaim when it comes to Genesis 11 and the whole Babel language thing. I think they overread the passage, and that feels like what's the cause or what's behind this question. In other words, because because you can't really do linguistics, let's just put it this way. You can't really be, there's no linguist that's going to say that all the languages of the world come from one language. Okay, and that's there's just no evidence for that. Okay, that's true. But here's my question. Does the Tower of Babel story require that thought? I don't think it does. That's why I'm saying evangelicals tend to overreach and overclaim from this passage. Let's just go look at the passage here. We have Genesis 11. Here's what we read. Come, God is the speaker here, again, speaking to his counsel. Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language. Again, we in verse 1, it makes the text makes the statement that all the world had one language, okay? Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. Now, this has been read so frequently to say that, there was one language, and now all the languages of the world resulted from this event. That is not actually what the text says. So here are my questions. Where is the claim in those verses? Where is the claim in the text that all the earth's languages arose as a result of what happened here? There is no such claim in the text. The text says the language of the people in verse 1 was one, they had one language, and that circumstance, having one language, that was ruined. That was undone. So in verse 1, we have the whole earth had one language, and then in verse 9, the Lord confused that one language of all the earth. We're not told how many languages, created the confusion. We're not given a number at all. Was it 2? Was it 4? Why does it have to be, 10, 20,000, with all the dialects that we see today? Again, that is assumed, that is read into Genesis 11, and it's linguistically indefensible, just on the basis of linguistic science. And even if you say, well, look, we're talking about the nations that they knew about, there's 70 of them, Genesis 10 and all that kind of stuff. Even if you take those, it doesn't work. Because if you actually go look at, ancient languages, there you have, again, without getting too peripheral here, too, far off the beaten path, Sumerian as a language is unaffiliated. It's not Semitic. It's not Asian, okay, it's not Egyptian, it stands alone. Okay, what it is something that you can't tie all the others to, and frankly, it's difficult to tie any known language completely to Sumerian. There are some candidates that have some specific overlaps with Sumerian, but nothing sort of works that says, we understand that Sumerian was the parent language of this, that, or the other thing. Okay, even Akkadian. Akkadian is a Semitic language. Sumerian is not. Akkadians used the Sumerian script, the invention of cuneiform, to represent their own language. So their relationship is the script, the idea, the innovation of using wedges to represent verbal speech. It's not that the languages are related, because they're not. Egyptian, again, sort of is by itself because it has traces of the Hamitic family, the African family, and also some Semitic. But neither of those is related to Sumerian. So there's a complete disconnect there. Again, I'll just stop there. But you have a situation, even if you're talking about the 70 nations of Genesis 10, where this doesn't work linguistically with all of the data at our disposal. But I would suggest to you, Genesis 11 never claims that. It never says that all, think about what it says, all the earth had one language, and that gets confused. That's a lot different than saying all the earth had one language, and at the end of the Babel event, the earth had 70 languages. Okay, or 20 or 30 or whatever. It never says that. That has to be read into the account. So while I would say, again, just broadly, loosely, you don't have to have, some sort of detailed proofiness for every, for the historicity of every item in Genesis 1 to 11 to buy into the divine counsel worldview. You don't have to have that at all. You have to believe that, again, there is a supernatural world and it intersects with our world. And again, you have to believe in big concepts like, Yahweh chose a people for himself. The other ones he doesn't. He disinherits. Still interested in them, that kind of thing. And those are big picture, broad, sweeping theological concepts. So you can embrace all that without saying, well, or was it or in southern Mesopotamia or northwestern Mesopotamia? Since I can't know for sure, I just have to throw up my hands and say I can't believe any of it. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Again, you don't need that. But I will, again, object to just the premise of the question, because I do think evangelicals typically overread the whole incident.